So we're finally doing this, huh? Queen Lily of House Nefertari being revealed in the story as the key figure behind the Poneglyphs being spread around the world means that Egypt and Syncretism are absolutely at play in One Piece. Like the video, share it everywhere, and subscribe if you already haven't. Welcome to the YouTube Partner Special. Thank you for everything, and let's start from the very top. Ever notice Kuma's Bible? Ever notice the picture depicted on it? That person looks exactly like Queen Lily of House Nefertari. Her silhouette looks exactly like our Tachii Nefertari. The frozen mural, the ox Lloyd Bell, and Nolan the Liar all have similar swirls as Kuma's Bible. Imu Narona exists as a fairy prince or princess, that being the child of an ancient Oni and a Tantata. This is foreshadowed through two things. Number one being the One Piece waifus cover, where Vivi is wearing a tiger shirt, where Lily is revealed in the same chapter, and also Normandy Charlotte, the 82nd child of Charlotte Linlin, where Linlin let a Tantata go spelunking in them big gushies. But more seriously, the Tiger Lily shirt that Vivi is wearing connects massively to the Peter Pan Native American princess Tiger Lily, who was kidnapped by Captain Hook, who was himself a former Lost Boy who left Peter Pan's Neverland to grow up and returned to Neverland to kill the thing that he had lost over the years, his romance for adventure and the love of his friends. The most famous quote from Peter Pan being, "To die would be the greatest adventure of all." But how is Peter Pan even relevant to One Piece? Well, Peter Pan used to leave etchings in all of the chimneys that he would leave behind, and in One Piece, on almost every single poneglyph, there seems to be a Panda Man relevant. Let's start with the first step. Lily D. Nefertari of Princess Alubarna was a D erased from history. How many more Ds were erased from history? With Kuma mimicking the giant robot from 200 years ago, even Fisher Tiger before him. Bartholomew D. Kuma is coming, I promise. The fact he's being beat by other celestial dragons and slaves within the location of what we can presume to be Marijois, then celestial dragons and their hatred of Ds comes from an almost generational self-hatred if we follow the shared origin myth template that I'm suggesting here, because celestial dragons and Ds were the same clan. They simply underwent a coup. Nefertari D. Cobra's dying words to Saba was, "We're all Ds," in the presence of the Gorosei and the Great Mu, which was a name that Cobra remembered. He also remembered Nico Robin's recitation of Alubarna's historical poneglyph. Let's briefly go over that information again. In the Age of Heaven, year 306, a great temple was constructed. Then 19 years later, in 325, a great hero of Ulti appeared, and their name was Mamudin. 86 years prior to the construction of the Great Taf Cathedral, Cairo was conquered by Alabasta. Now, Ulti is a city in Romania, and it was ruled over by Vlad Tepes. If we follow the Dracula connection to Vlad Tepes, then we can directly see that Ulti was a city of Wallachia, and that Dracula himself was the hero of Ulti in his own story. This is perfectly mirrored by Doflamingo's return to Dressrosa, because he directly refers to himself as a quote great hero. So vampires are directly canon in One Piece at this point, with Charlotte Dequise being biologically born with those wings, and his baddie sister Charlotte Gillette not being able to take the horns off, and even King Seki shows us that vampires are a very recessive gene, as Princess Komane does not have any fangs. But now we must also include Stussy, who is possibly eaten a devil fruit that turns her into a vampire type thing. If it was just a bat fruit, she would not be able to suck blood and put people to sleep. Stussy with her bad self is another vampire. Here's the joke. Dracula had 3 wives, and his first wife was Verona. Dracul Mihawk is forever with the ghost princess Herona. Emporio and Vonkov even confirmed that the Narona family is the family that Imu-sama themselves descend from. The name Narona is a part of the Polish word Nero's Torches, which was an 1876 oil on canvas painting, which was more famously known as the Candlesticks of Christianity. and we recently just found out about Vegapunk's invention of the Mazafremu, or the mother frame, or the main frame of fire. So it's very interesting that Emporio Ivankov, the Okama queen that directly connects us to Nero Claudius's burning of Rome, and the martyrs that were pinned for the burning of it. And through Syncretism, Oda has magically connected the story of Nero Claudius, the story of the first bride of Dracula, and the dead princess of the Emerald City from the Wizard of Oz. He's that much of a master. Narona family. These things rhyme, and it's intentional, because do you know the next time that I can rhyme right now is with Lily, Titi, and Vivi.
Zamaza Fremu directly reveals what Narona is currently sitting on the throne. Freya Mu Narona, mother Freya Mu Narona. Freya in Norse mythology even had a chariot that was carried by two cats. The imagery was present even back in Skypiea with the black bird boat that Sanji was driving. And the connection of Mother Freya Mu Narona connects the Bible Genesis to the Bible Progressio found in Ohara, meaning that the book that Ivankov is holding.
And this is from a library of Ohara acknowledged Bible, where they had access to 2 out of the 3 of them. The one titled Genesis, which Ivankov is currently holding, and the other one, which was right beside the romance fiction of the Bragman called Progressio, which was the Asgardian dream to break out of the cycle of death, creation, and rebirth.
Freya Mu
Narona is the vampire queen that possessed the body of her husband's sister, Queen Lily D. Nefertari. Why do I say husband? Because in an SBS, Oda directly cut himself off right before saying the word marriage when talking about the core theme of One Piece. The previous events that I just stated, though, were foreshadowed in the 334 Big Trouble in the Secret Room. Do you see the giant snake? Do you see the party pose that the Straw Hats are partaking in? Do you notice the writing on the snake? Those are Poneglyph writing texts. And do you see how many fish there are? There are 16 fish flying into that snake's mouth. This is symbolically telling us the process in which the great Mu Narona continues to retain their form.
A ritualistic cycle of equivalent exchange. Ivankov, being alchemically perfect, was referred to as the god of the queen world. Using that logic, Freya Mu Narona would be the god of the king world, or rather, the sky king world. Uranus, the planet all of them are standing on, literally.
So if immortality was the technique that the ancient kingdom was able to perform, hearkening back to the Enel Poneglyphs, where a quote light was being placed inside of these automatas and they're able to experience all forms of sentience, then this is just more evidence of the comic strength. Let me just break it down for you. Comics, myths, public personas, these all have individual weight and force, and they are all exactly like genetics, where they get stronger or weaker due to the Darwinian aspect of how time works. And this logic is also effective on memes as well, that also gain strength and crystallize over time. This is the core principle of Hermeticism. Names have power through perception. Mont Blanc Cricket and Jewelry Bonnie both refute the false narratives being placed upon their family names, that being Nolan the Liar and the Tyrant King Bartholomew Kuma. And funny enough, the name, your name, is an aspect of your soul in Egypt. Names have weight, and through your creative desires can you shape that imagination and feel that imagination into existence with your willpower or your haki. Regarding names though, the Alabastan Poneglyph doesn't name a Nefertari on it at all. Deadass, where's the Nefertari younger brother that couldn't protect Lily D. Nefertari? A D wiped from Poneglyphs? It sounds a lot like Joyboy, really. Nefertari D. Joyboy wrote down these 13 Poneglyphs that reveal the real history of the Void Century and what the One Piece is and how to get to it. How does one write onto indestructible metals though, seeing as how Roger needed the assistance of Kozuki Odin in order to do it? Well, the samurai on Wano are specifically able to perform something called Ryo, and that's not exclusive to Wano. It's just the applications of it have only been shown on Wano. So if you have a shared society of different civilizations, eventually techniques are going to be kind of blended over and kind of mix and match. Oda does this all the time, and this is called Syncretism. These methods are the methods in which the Apology to Fishman Island was written. Yeah, Oda thought he was really sweet, hiding Nefertari Joy Boy, but don't worry y'all, I'm activated, I'm locked in. So let's review the information dumped onto us. Inside the room with the 5 Gorosei demons, yes, demons, they were demons before demon fruits existed. Cobra D Nefertari states there are no mentions of Queen Lily's name. She did not come back to rule Alabasta after visiting Merjua, and her little brother took the throne in Alabasta instead. Is there anything you might be able to tell us about her? Did you take that in? The mistake, the great blunder 800 years ago, was involving the Nefertari, a younger brother royal, and casting out the loathsome relics called Poneglyphs in order to point pirates to where the One Piece is and reveal the true history that was erased 800 years ago. In fact, there are 26 Poneglyphs in total, but only 13 detail the erased history and the path to the One Piece. Queen Lily D Nefertari's blunder was never being able to tell a good story. I firmly believe that she's been inspired by Scheherazade, and Joy Boy D Nefertari himself was inspired by Sinbad, conqueror of the 7 seas, a fairy tale that Scheherazade made up in order to quell the nightmares of a king in order to help him sleep so she was not assassinated. Now that we have the reveal of another founding family member, Mu of House Narona, through Emporio Ivankov in a book titled Genesis, we need to look at Impel Down and the Devil's Invitation. Panda Man. Prisoners randomly go missing, and Bon Kure refers to Eva as the god of the Queen world.
Why come no one ever noticed how the gates of justice form a pyramid, with essentially invisible steel between the gates, allowing the Tachii current to essentially function as a perpetual motion machine, as long as the gates are closed, of course. Literally, a machine that can do infinite work without external energy. It breaks 2 of the laws of thermodynamics, but the Tachii perpetual motion current is the motion of ocean bodies that continues forever in an unperpetuated system. The sea current and the deep sea currents both encompass the entire ocean of One Piece. Ships can't leave the Tachii current, as far as we know for now. Neither can they fly out of that pyramid either. Could those invisible walls between the gates be the same technology from the scene on Egghead? Again, Lilith Punk says fire can be converted into anything. Quick flashback to chapter 594. The chapter that is completely filled with gold that I'll reference again later. But we learn that in all of recorded canon, Blackbeard was the first ever to consume 2 devil fruits according to the Gorosei. We also see the impetus of the Shanks and Gorosei link. Anybody could have missed this, but this was post Marineford, and the same chapter, Half 3-Eye Killer, future video on that, explained to us the Ox Royce and after Luffy performed the rite of burial, implying that the Gorosei reached out to the boy red-haired Shanks. Let me know your interpretation of this down below in the comments, and go ahead and hit that like and subscribe please. But finally, in chapter 594, we see Kong at his office in Mary Joyce, but we also see the windows. This is the bottom of the ocean. It's not an aquarium. Even if it was an aquarium, it supports the idea that Mary Joyce's red line side is completely hollow. More on that later. But it's the latest chapter that's the most relevant to us here. Did you know the Alabastan ship hasn't left the red port yet since Cobra was murdered and Vivi disappeared at the same time? And from chapter 906's informations and implication, probably in the same room as well. A murder and a disappearance happening in the same room makes no sense if the true goal of the Gorosei was to just pin it on Sabo anyway. Kuma is currently scaling the red line, paralleling the giant robot on Egghead. But let's look at Kuma in this flashback. Those are his ears. This could very well mean that Kuma is a panda man. Oda, through design, has canonized one of the strongest running memes in One Piece. The joke backstory is that he saw Princess Kaguya, became a devil Chojin, then went on to preside over his own island. Appearances of Panda Man have pointed all the way back to Mont Blanc Nolan's era, but more on that later. Chapter 1072 also gave us the first ever successful clone, that was Buckingham Stussy of the Rock's Pirates. We also see in the cover story Caesar himself holding an all-black devil fruit. This is the first time I've ever seen one. This clone also one-taps an awakened Kaku and says Kaku and Lucci need to sleep. Is this Oda also canonizing succubuses or vampires? We know nothing special about King Seki except the fact that he's got very similar fangs, and right now his lineage doesn't exist anymore. But let me know your thoughts, cause I'm more leaning succubuses, and it's wild how they connect to Egypt. Part 1.3 coming. We also get the idea that the pawpaw fruit can make concepts like pain physical, a complete wireless transfer, according to Vegapunk, who later states that the soul weighs 21 grams, according to a scientist in the West Blue in One Piece. Meaning the soul and the shadow are separate, since Blackbeard left the body of Edward Newgate to be buried. More on that later. Bonnie also hints at there being multiple futures, but fate drives a canon of one universe due to living things only being under her effect for a period of time, proving the Willie Karen quote to be true. Everything humans can imagine is a possibility in reality. So is Kuma on his way to save Vivi from Imu Nefertari? I hope so. Did Oda canonize his favorite meme? Most likely. But more on that in part 1.3. But welcome to the 600 subscriber special, guys! Woo! Let's start with connecting the Nefertari lineage with Uranus. Inversely to Poseidon, who was always a mermaid princess, Uranus could be locked to the Nefertari lineage. That lineage obviously is diluted by the time Cobra is depicted to us. The control or influence over the universal Haki frequency by which all Denden Mushis interact with. Go ahead and check out Counter Agenda from the main host of the creator Kumite, Regulus, link in description. Haki in One Piece goes by different names. On Skypiea they refer to it as mantra. In Wano it's called Ryo, meaning it's most likely the case that Haki is directly inspired from the system the ancient Egyptians in real life called magic. Heka, the god of which was called Hapi, and the god of wisdom that controlled both was Medjed, and was referred to as the smiter from the house of Osiris. Fun fact, if you take 2Ds and slap them together, you get the symbol of Osiris, called Fi. More on that in part 1.3. But now we need to establish the idea of a celestial dragon deciding to overtake the country they ascended from, using the fall of Dressrosa from Doflamingo's arrival to King Riku's window, as an allegorical parallel, which I promise I'll explain in part 1.3, I promise. This is the first hint that Imu is the god of the rain. More later, but Oda has now canonized the idea that every out there theory and philosophy is essentially canon in One Piece due to him being a conceptual writer, meaning Oda sensei broadens an idea to its furthest possible extreme. For example, Oda made the Nika fruit design in inspiration from Hanuman, the progenitor of the concept of a monkey deity. Knowing that, wouldn't Blackbeard be Sun Wukong, the defier of gods? Through this logic, I mean, on Jaya, Blackbeard only had Van Augur, Jesus Burgess, and Doc Q, including Stronger. That's 5. Now look at this image of the people from Journey to the West. More on the final fight in part 1.3. And you can't tell me with a straight face that the Yami Yami no Mi and the Gomu Gomu no Mi do not look almost very similar. So we're most likely looking at a mythical Zoan with Blackbeard. What type? Later on, I promise. Using Gorowase, Ju means 10, and from Figarland Garling, we can see that Holy Knights can knight themselves. So what if you were such a good holy knight that you were ushered into the 5 elder stars? Would you be given a new name? That's a genuine question. But warrior gods, let's talk about them. In Norse mythologies, there were 2 factions of warrior gods. You had the Aesir, ran by Odin, and you had the Vanir, led by Frey. The Vanir and the Aesir would consistently do battle until one day where they decided to make peace by spitting into a bucket. Gross, I know. But from that, a god was born, Kvasir, and his power was to be able to translate dreams of all the other gods, technically making him Frey's child, but also the embodied spirit of peace between the divine. Frey also ruled over Valhalla, whilst wearing an all-black falcon cloak. I believe the Valhalla of this mythology is currently the Pangaea castle the Gorse and Imu currently reside in. The castle that sits at the top of the tectonic plates of the destroyed realms of the former intergalactic world tree and crashed onto the Sky King planet of Uranus. And the ancient weapon Uranus's bloodline lied within Lily di Nefertari, who herself was inspired from Scheherazade. Now here's the joke. Scheherazade had a cartoon, and there were 3 princesses. Do you see the cover? I'm willing to guess that one of them is Pluton, one of them is Poseidon, the other one's Uranus. How do I think that? The first Kozuki princess, the first mermaid princess, and the first Nefertari princess. Ancient weapons were people, and these people were honored as gods according to Kalgara. Compounded with Muse explaining how her ancestors resided within holy white ancestor trees, I think this gives us a clue to the name of the ancient kingdom, the Tachii kingdom. More later. You're gonna love how meta that is. With the Alabastan Poneglyph giving no info on any Nefertari, but instead deciding to reference Draculian lore, if we follow the connections here, then Dracul Mihawk himself is a celestial dragon, and the ghost princess Perona was foreshadowing to the person sitting on the empty throne right now. Joyboy D Nefertari is the Odin allegory, since there is no Odin in One Piece. We have a Prince Loki existing in Elbaf, and it's weird how there's no mentions of a Thor outside of Enel's named move. So what happened to Thor, and even Odin? Because the giants practice a named move called Gungnir, and that's the spear of Odin. So what if Loki of Elbaf isn't a giant at all? What if he is a Wotan? Shadow's Asgard gives me the direct inspiration for this thought train. Moria turned himself into a giant frogman for some weird reason, I don't know why. So Loki's amphibian silhouette could be explained by the mix-up of giant and fishman DNA. We know Big Pan from the Foxy Pirates canonically is the only Wotan we have, but I think Loki, Jack the Drought, and even former Vice Admiral Jaguar D. Saul are all Wotans. The Yetis seem to be a mink giant hybrid, and even the revolutionary Ushiano seems to be a mink fishman hybrid himself. One Piece is the most racially diverse shonen series to ever exist on purpose, because Oda loves hiding where fairies are, Normandy Charlotte, and vampires with Dequise and Gillette. So how much history was wiped from 800 years ago? I don't think much. Kuma's Bible has the Uranus lineage on it, and Sanji held another candidate of Uranus during Skypiea when he was holding a picture of the sepia-toned Vivi that could have been Willie Karen on the crashed St. Brice. Anything humans can imagine is a possibility in reality. And what was the alchemical symbol of Uranus again? Gold, pierced by the spear of Mars, or the spear of Odin. And what do we see on the crashed St. Brice? A sepia-toned Vivi pierced by a spear. The literal symbol of Uranus is in the Son of the Sky's hands, Sora Vinsmoke, and the test name for Judge Vinsmoke was Saint Germain, who was a famous alchemist and wrote down spells for immortality.
Deep game on how egregious Eiichiro Oda can be in terms of his self-referentialism, because chapter 866, the Big Mom flashback, which I really want to do highlight because we're going to be getting into shared technology and passing down techniques through time and having time affect and crystallize those things for over an era, i.e. hockey is the force, but I'll get into that. With the Big Mom chapter, where we got confirmation that she did not experience hunger pangs until after eating semla.
meaning that her entire genealogy, her entire bloodline elements were altered by the consumption of that semla. Her eyes were never red up until the moment of eating it, despite being left alone by her parents for months. As we can see that it's first snowing in this panel, and in the previous panel there's no snow. But from there, in that chapter, 866, the SBS, Oda decided to confirm a whole bunch of birthdays for people, using the prophetic technique of Goruwase. Well, what's really egregious about this is, if you focus on Kanjuro, during Whole Cake Island, we did not know that Kanjuro was a traitor or involved with any form of snake activities. But Oda decided to confirm it as July 21st. In the brackets, you can see here it's Inatsu no Isha, or Summer Doctor, using Goruwase prophecism. That is also apparently, in Oda's eyes, a Rakugo story. What a Rakugo story is, quote, Rakugo stories are usually rather long, humorous stories which can sometimes be also sentimental. The true art of Rakugo is to not simply tell the story and deliver the punchline, but to increase the comedic value by acting out the story with just the right tone and precise body gestures. And what did he do when he revealed himself as the traitor? Motherfucker smiled in the rain. Oda is egregious with this shit. That right there, what we described, was in real life One Piece syncretism, where Oda decided to fusion dance two different ideas together and make a whole brand new one. How is that connected to how real life civilizations developed over time? Well, Rome prolifically syncretized everything into their cultures. When it comes to their gods, Jupiter was just an allegory to Zeus from the Greeks that they dominated and ruled over. So yeah, Oda's been doing this shit forever. Peep game on how egregious the metatextual references are as well. When Ace, during his cover story, was hunting down Blackbeard, Oda decided to make it, hey, I'm gonna title this chapter Divina Commedia, which is directly referencing the Divine Comedy of Dante's descent into hell during Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy or Divine Tragedy, written by an Italian man exodused from his city. And what happened to Ace? And where did Luffy try to free him from? He busted into Impel Down, the place that is quite literally the direct reference visually to the Divine Comedy through its levels. If you play with the titles of chapter 540, 541, and 542, you can read it as another story to tell, infinite hell, the likes of which we have never seen.